Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Well, Elon Musk is now the richest person on the planet.
More than half the satellites in space are owned and controlled by one man.
Well, he's a legitimate super genius. I mean, legitimate.
He says he's always voted for Democrats, but this year it will be different. He'll vote Republican.
There is a reason the U.S. government is so reliant on him.
Elon Musk is a scam artist, and he's done nothing.
Anything he does is fascinating to people.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. It's Tuesday, September 24th. I'm your host, David Papadopoulos. Now, regular listeners might know that this show, like Elon Musk himself, loves a feud. And this week has been all about the feuds. Elon lost one badly in Brazil. He seems to have started another one with the warlord of Chechnya. And he even made a couple of enemies in a battle over land rights. Yes, as Elon has been rubbing elbows and yucking it up with his new pals, Javier Milei and Giorgia Meloni in New York for the UN General Assembly, the conflicts have been coming in fast from all directions. Dana Hall will join us to talk about that Chechen warlord, Ramzan Kadyrov, and his beloved Cybertruck, and we'll get into those land rights spats. But before that, we're going to start in Brazil, where Elon just caved to Judge Alexandre de Moraes, bringing an end to a high-profile battle that led to X being banned there. To discuss this, Max Chafkin has joined me here in the studio. Hey, Max.
Hey, David.
And from Sao Paulo, we're beaming in Julie Leite, who runs our emerging markets coverage in Latin America. Julia, welcome.
Hey, David. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Julia. So when we last visited the topic of Musk versus the Sovereign Republic of Brazil, Musk was still refusing to do the things that the Supreme Court wanted there. Remove accounts spreading disinformation on X, appoint a representative in the country, and X was still banned. All that changed late last week. Walk us through what exactly happened.
So a little less than a month after Twitter went down, Musk decided to back down. Indeed. So he named a legal representative. He blocked the accounts that the judge had ordered them to and paid fines that had been incurring for a while and that he had been refusing to pay. Now, at the beginning, you said it was over, right? It's not quite yet. You cannot access Twitter here yet. We tried a bit earlier.
So when you try to call up the app, you still get, what do you get? What does it show?
It just keeps loading.
Keeps loading.
And just looks, no tweets, no nothing, just, the little, what is it called?
The beach ball of doom.
It's the beach ball of doom.
Thank you, Max.
So you still can't access it as we speak. And that's been the case, as you said, for going over a month now, right?
Yeah, I think it was August 30 or 31st that it first went down.
Okay. So the better part, essentially all of September, Musk has said he's done these things. He's shut down these accounts that the Supreme Court wanted shut down. And he's now got a legal representative in the country. But for G. Moraes, I guess that's just not quite enough yet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So he gave the company until Friday to file additional paperwork, which is essentially proof that he hired legal representation. He wants things to be notarized and, just full proof that, yes, this is the legal representative that can be held accountable. And he also asked the regulatory bodies, Anatel, to ensure that they've paid all the fines that they owe from previous rulings before he allows it to, before he'll decide.
It's like $1 million, right?
It's like $3.5 million.
Okay.
But basically, this guy's not messing around. I mean, he's like, you may say these things. All right, show me the money and show me, bring me your counsel. I want to speak with this person.
All the paperwork, all the bureaucracy, I want it, and then I'll decide.
And X is a pretty big deal there in Brazil, right? As far as social media giants go.
It's pretty widely used. It's not like when it went down, it was not the chaos of when WhatsApp went down in 2016, also because of a court order. That was chaos. But this was weird. I think the latest numbers that we have are about 20 million active users, which is pretty hefty. It doesn't compare to WhatsApp or YouTube, but it's still pretty widely used. I think one survey that we had was about a third of smartphone users had it installed.
That is indeed a pretty big number. Now, Max, I mean, here's the thing. We had the sense on this show a few weeks ago, you and Kurt Wagner as well, that as big a market as Brazil is for X, in some ways, 20 million users and so on and so forth, that ultimately, in terms of the nickels and dimes it generated for the company, it wasn't enough for Musk really to worry about it. And because the whole thing had been in this pitched battle over free speech with the Brazilian Supreme Court judge, it and he had kind of become a cause celeb. And so it was a good fight to fight. But the way he suddenly just absolutely caved, bang, 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 and acquiesced to everything Jim Moraes was asking for, I guess he did need the money in the end.
You know, some memes are not worth the cost. And, you know, when Elon Musk walked into the Twitter headquarters with the sink, like I assume he had to send an intern to Home Depot. That costs the intern's labor and the, $150 for that sink. And maybe that was worth it. But here we're talking about a bunch of costs. And I think what probably happened over the course of this month is that they started to add up in his mind. So yes, it's true that revenue, in terms of advertising revenue from Brazil, is not significant. But as Kurt pointed out when we talked about this, as far as a number of users, it's actually one of the bigger markets. And, if we've learned anything over the last couple of years of Elon Musk's ownership of Twitter, now X, he doesn't care that much about advertising revenue, but he really cares about engagement. And if you just pull out a bunch of users, that is going to show up in the numbers.
But why do you care about engagement without the revenue? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day,
he's building a new model, David. He is charging people a subscription fee. He's also interested in influence. So advertising revenue, right? It's been devalued in his mind. But what hasn't been devalued, I don't think, is number of users. He constantly is bragging about how many users are in X, and also
Trumpian
engagement
style, right?
I don't think it's just about
look at the size of my crowd.
It's not just about his ego, though. I mean, part of what makes this thing worth it in his mind, I think, is number one, influence, which is about number of users. And number two, he is trying to build a subscription model, and having a lot of users, is the way to do that. So those are things that I think hurt him. The other thing is, there are a lot of, very active accounts in Brazil, some of which Elon Musk follows, and others that are just they're, one of the funny things about this ban was that you had random fan accounts, random meme accounts, just these big X accounts that happen to be run by Brazilians that went offline. So I think that's one thing. And the last thing is Brazil has ways to hurt Elon Musk outside of X. We talked about the potential for freezing assets, for attacking his other businesses. You don't really want to pick a fight with a large country if you can help it. And I think in that sense, this was inevitable.
Yeah, and I also believe it was inevitable because on Brazil being a large country, this is a very important point here. I mean, it seems to me that when he got initially locked in this battle with them, he some way, somehow convinced himself that G. Moraes and the Supreme Court of Brazil were going to capitulate. That was never going to happen. I mean, you should just call up Brazil on a map, okay? It is geographically a very, very large place, larger than the continental United States. And like the U.S., it suffers a bit from big country-itis. It carries itself that way in international forums. And there was no way in hell Alexandre de Moraes was going to say, you know what, Elon Musk, you're right. Let me reverse all these orders I made, and I'm going to let you operate here in the country without striking down those accounts and without having a legal representative here. That was a losing hand, and perhaps he came to realize that.
There's also the problem of the precedent, right? So part of the problem here with taking a stand in Brazil is that there are other countries with politics that Elon Musk might find even more objectionable that have also asked X to throw out accounts or have banned X altogether. And Elon Musk had attempted to kind of walk this line saying that he believed, as you're saying, David, that the actions of the Supreme Court that the application of the law was somehow unlawful. Like basically attempting to say like, well, this is just a dispute over the reading of the law, as if, as you say, that the justice would back down, which of course didn't happen. If he had sort of tried to play this out, it would create all sorts of problems in other countries, in Turkey, in China, anywhere where you have countries attempting to restrict speech, which is a lot of countries.
Julie Leite, let me ask you this. On the topic of losing engagement and losing numbers there has been some migration from X users to other platforms there in Brazil. Has there not been?
Yeah, there has been. They were losing active users even before this, as I think globally is the case as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we did see, I think the main ones were Threads, which is owned by Meta, and Blue Sky, which was founded by Jack Dorsey. Both look very similar to Twitter and both saw a big inflow in the lead up. And right before Twitter went down, politicians and celebrities and influencers started tweeting their handles in these platforms so they wouldn't lose the following.
Now, did you yourself go over to Blue Sky or Threads?
I did not go into Blue Sky. I did go into Threads. I did.
And now that X is coming back, Julia, are you going to shut Threads down? You're right back on X, or no? You're sold on Threads.
I will keep it open.
I see. Okay.
But if and when it's restored, I will go back to Twitter.
Weren't people sending you, like, was you trying to watch the debate, the U.S. debate, the Kamala Harris-Donald Trump debate? That was the kind of thing you typically would have followed on X. Unable to, you simply were like send screenshots by people outside of the country?
Pretty much, yeah. Both. And we are having local elections here as well, which is also playing into this dynamic of Musk and the Supreme Court. But watching a political debate without Twitter or without X is very different.
I'm curious, it's an interesting sort of natural experiment to have a country, just a large country with a big Twitter following where, there's a very healthy political discourse suddenly have no Twitter. Julia, does Brazil seem just like a less vibrant place over the last month without this town square, this amazing app that we're all addicted to?
A little bit. I think it's harder to find stuff, right? And it's harder to find common ground through these conversations because some are on Blue Sky and some are on Threads and some are on WhatsApp groups. So you just have to get screenshots sent to you the whole time.
Okay. Well, Julia, you're going to have to let us know as soon as your account is working again. To great fanfare, we shall announce it here on this show. Thank you for joining us, and we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you.
Now we say hello to Dana Hull. Hello, Dana.
Hey, hey.
And we're going to talk all about the Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov and his Cybertruck and how Elon, Kadyrov alleges, has disabled it. What exactly is going on here? And how did Kadyrov get his hands on one of these things again in the first place? Remind us.
So this story is a little bit problematic for me because we have no way to actually verify if anything that this Chechnyan warlord is saying is true. Right now, the Cybertruck is only sold in North America. That said, some people in Europe and elsewhere have gotten their hands on them. They're importing them via third parties. So apparently, he got his hands on a Cybertruck, outfitted it with a machine gun, drove it to the front lines or used it, in the war in Ukraine, and then alleged that Elon Musk had disabled it remotely. I can't verify if that's true. Tesla does not have a comms team. So it's like we're sort of taking his, the whole news cycle around this was basically taking this Chechnyan warlord at face value. And people are like, and I get it. Like, oh, Tesla Cybertruck warlord, that's like easy clicks for the news media. But I just have a problem with it because I really have no idea what is true and what is just sort of like a fake thing.
But also, Musk denied that he gave, the original claim was that Musk gave him this truck. Musk denied it, right immediately. And like Dana, I think we should...
Wait, but are we doubting that this guy actually has his hands on a truck and has fitted it with a machine gun? Or are we saying we think that those are deep fakes or we're...
I think it's very possible, as Dana says, that he managed to acquire one through a third party. That happens all the time in countries that are subject to sanctions. So totally possible that it happened here. I don't know what I'm not an expert on Cybertruck authenticity or whatever, but I do think, like Dana's saying, we should regard these posts as having motivations that might not be as explicit as just saying, as just complaining Elon Musk or thanking him or whatever. This very much, to me, has felt like efforts by somebody who's very close to Vladimir Putin to get messaging out into the Western media, which it has effectively. Here we are. We're talking about it.
We are indeed talking about it. Now, let me at least ask you this part of it, though, Dana. Kadyrov alleges that, indeed, that Musk disabled it. And I need to ask you this. Is this a thing? So you can all of a sudden, like I could be driving a Cybertruck down the highway at 72 miles an hour or abiding the law, so at 55, and all of a sudden, Big Brother turns it off on me and I lose momentum. Like, is that possible?
That's the other thing. Like, it could have just broken down, right? Like, I mean, the Cybertruck is still in fairly early production, so it could have just been broken down, and he's claiming that Musk himself disabled it. That said, like, Tesla is very much a software-based company. A lot of people always talk about how the vehicles are iPhones on wheels. I'm sure that, like, if Elon and his, like, IT and security team really wanted to, they could, like, go deep into the bowels of their security infrastructure and, like, locate the vehicle via the VIN and somehow, like, send some software to stop it. But I'm not under the impression that this is something that, like, Tesla actively does. I think a more plausible explanation is that it just broke down.
Well, especially if it was on a battlefield.
Also, third-party actor, first of all, there have been accounts of other vehicles, non-Tesla vehicles, that have been remotely accessed by hackers. Like, Tesla isn't alone in having a car that is connected to the internet. That, this stuff has come up with other vehicle makes where hackers have reported exploits that they say have been able to disable vehicles. There are also third parties probably involved. There's like a chain of software providers and so on. And if he really did acquire this Cybertruck, he acquired it through a broker. So some other third party who could have put something in the like, it just seems like there are so many unknowns here that it's almost impossible to say anything definitive or useful about this, except that, like, the Cybertruck is a meme, and that meme has reached Russia.
And the Cybertruck is a vehicle that I think Musk would clearly love for the military to think of as a procurement option. It's this apocalyptic car designed for, zombies and life on Mars and apparently war. And so I think that there's, like, some upside to this being out there, but I'm just sort of frustrated that, like, we went through a whole news cycle of, like, credulity based on, like, what a Russian warlord wrote on Telegram. And I just think that, in this era of disinformation and deepfakes, like, I would prefer that people just exercise a little bit more caution before believing that there's any validity to this whatsoever.
So, by the way, he does, Kadyrov again, for however much we want to believe him here, he said that the Cybertruck, Max, was performing its combat tasks beautifully. Now, I'm just trying to guess what we think these tasks were. Was it actually in the front line, or was it like making Dunkin' Donut runs for the generals or something?
I have like Dan, I have a hard time believing any part of the story, including that part of the story. The Cybertruck has gotten kind of middling reviews from car reviewers. I don't expect that military reviewers are going to offer anything other than that. Although, again, it does have the look. And if you care about the look, maybe. Right. But I just don't. There's just, like, very little evidence that this is even a good way to, like, haul wood, let alone move along a battlefield.
Yeah, what's the charging infrastructure there? I mean, that's my other question.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that is a very good question. But Max, as someone who's hauled a lot of wood in my life, yes, no, I don't think that's a wood hauling vehicle. Dan, I'm sorry to obsess on this point, though, but on the disabling of this thing, I'm just worried if all of a sudden my truck, as I'm driving down the road, is going to turn off on me. What you're telling me is it's not necessarily if this technology exists and this ability to exist, that Big Brother can do this to you. It's not about whether your vehicle's an EV or a combustion engine vehicle. It's about just how connected you ultimately are to the internet and how much how much of a smart vehicle it is. That's what would make it susceptible.
I mean, Tesla just has a lot of data about its vehicles. Like there was an incident like years ago where certain vehicle owners, instead of charging their Teslas at home, would go to like the local supercharger and charge. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of like using the superchargers more than they were supposed to. And they were like supercharger scofflaws. And like Tesla knew who they were because they have the data analytics about like charging use, and they sent letters to some owners that was like, hey, you should really charge at home. And so they just know a lot about your vehicle. So this is just the way that vehicles are going to be going forward, like especially if you have a vehicle that's very software defined, and Tesla doesn't use third parties. They do, they by and large do all their software in-house. So they have a lot of information about you. Whether they're actively disabling vehicles, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I just think, like, clearly, both of these messages feel like deliberate attempts.
Both of what message?
Both the original claim that he had, that here, look at me driving around, me, a Chechen warlord in a sanctioned country, that Elon Musk gifted me this thing, which would be a sanctions violation, and the claim that Tesla remotely disabled it, which would be damaging if everyone believed that. If that were a true thing, if Tesla just goes around, bricking vehicles.
This is what I'm trying to figure out.
That'd be very damaging. So to me, these feel like both, in their own way, attempts to somehow destabilize, affect, put out some information about Musk that is damaging.
So you think this guy is short Tesla stock?
If I had to guess which direction he was investing, I would guess short.
Okay. You know what, then?
I'm sure that Chechen warlords have very, robust ethics codes around short selling, so I wouldn't want to accuse him of doing anything, but...
Okay. So given how both Max and Dana feel like the entire thing, the entire episode and incident are preposterous, we're moving on. Okay. Max, it's been a while since we've had a real feud watch here at the end. So it's been weeks and weeks. So long that I've heard from some of our listeners, they're wondering if you're taking your job seriously enough here.
Oh, my God. There have been so many good feuds, as you
So where you been?
All right, so...
But you're back, so you've got not one, but two for us this week.
And they are both related to land use disputes. So the first is a lawsuit brought by the card company, it's a game company, I should say, Cards Against Humanity.
Yes.
They make sort of tabletop games.
It's like apples to apples X-rated version or something.
I always find it to not be the most fun. I'm more of a Catan guy or whatever, but whatever, to each his own. And they, as part of Cards Against Humanity has a sort of anti-establishment, there's a puckishness to everything they do. Mm-hmm. During Donald Trump's presidency, they did some a crowdfunding effort to buy a swath of land on the Texas border to stop former President Trump from building a border wall. And they have taken this swath of land and used it as ammunition in a new dispute with Elon Musk, claiming that it's close to this launch site where SpaceX shoots rockets off, claiming that SpaceX has essentially trashed their land and asking for damages. And it's a very, I was trying to pull up the page that lays out these allegations, but it's a very entertaining complaint, essentially saying, we bought this land to mess with the efforts of a racist billionaire, but now there's an even more racist billionaire who we've turned our attention to, that being Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I love this feud, right? I mean, this is a fantastic feud. And I feel like a little bit like we were saying earlier about you shouldn't mess with Brazil. Don't take on Cards Against Humanity. They're ferocious, Max. And so I also believe, right, correct me if I'm wrong, that according to the lawsuit, Musk and SpaceX tried to pony up the money and hand Cards Against Humanity some money and buy the land. Cards Against Humanity said, hey, this is a tiny little amount. This is a joke. Come on, we're not taking this seriously. But, if you think about it, Max, who better to own Cards Against Humanity than Elon Musk? I would have actually thought that maybe he founded and created the game. It's a perfect game.
It does. You're so right, David. I mean, I will say, they've included some pictures of this land, and it really shows you that the pictures look bad. It looks like there's a before and after, and one of them looks like a nice, looking marsh, and the other looks like an industrial site. And I do think Elon Musk has made a lot of efforts to kind of dismiss the concerns of environmentalists as just kind of like red tape. We're seeing this kind of extended dispute with the FAA, the aviation authorities over sort of reauthorizing SpaceX, disputes with the EPA. Like this stuff, it like doesn't look good. And I think obviously this is gonna roll right off his back. But it isn't necessarily helpful for a guy who has a lot of fans, or used to anyway, have a lot of fans in the environmental movement.
But Dana, this is in line with somebody who likes to push the envelope and who'd much, much more prefer to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
Yeah, and I think that this Cards Against Humanity tidbit was like deep in a really well-reported Reuters story that was just all about how vastly SpaceX has kind of changed Boca Chica, which is where Starbase is, and buying up all the land around it. And yeah, I mean, Musk does not have a lot of tolerance for the slow wheels of government bureaucracy.
The other thing I'll say is, and we're probably going to have to talk about this more in a subsequent episode or episodes, but like Donald Trump is talking a lot about Elon Musk these days and has made comments about Mars and the need, suggesting that he's just going to like hire Elon Musk to fly some rockets there. This story and that together, it strikes me that if SpaceX were to become Trump coded, where like if you just start to think of this as like a Trump thing, that it's not, this isn't about humanity getting to Mars or expanding, its ambitions or sort of all of those like really, values that I think many people share about how wonderful the space exploration is. Like if it just turns into this partisan thing, that would be very bad for Elon Musk. So like, I don't think this is not going to damage him, but I do think there is this kind of drumbeat of ways in which his sort of political support for Donald Trump and his shift to the right is creating exposure and like legal exposure, but also cultural exposure.
Okay, very good. Now listen, to a certain extent, I feel our rustiness here in the Feud Watch segment because I think one of the rules of Feud Watch is you can't take any of it that seriously, okay? You're trying to break down a fight between Elon Musk and the men and women of Cards Against Humanity. Come on. Now, you have a second feud.
Okay, now this one is between Vinod Khosla, who is a very famous, very accomplished venture capitalist, also a donor to Democratic candidates. Like, it's so much back and forth. They've been mean tweeting each other for like 2 days. He started by attempting to sort of criticize some of Elon Musk's migration posts about migrants and essentially calling Elon out for repeating the lie that Haitians are eating cats and dogs. And that devolved into a lengthy back and forth in which Elon brought up an earlier dispute, an earlier land dispute where Vinod Khosla had been trying to stop the public from accessing a beach. Elon used a fake sign that said "No plebes allowed." They posted that. Vinod responded that that's a fake.
I've done no such
thing. You need to apologize, and lots of back and forth. And it really just shows like Twitter is not the best place to resolve your differences. And as a result, we have these two very wealthy guys, very powerful guys, kind of doing a back and forth like crazy, like schoolyard style.
Schoolyard style. I don't know. I still, of the two feuds you brought here this week, I still feel like the Cards Against Humanity is the better feud of the two. First of all, because I just like saying Cards Against Humanity. I mean, that's part of it. But I also like...
Can we talk about the opposite of a feud? I just want to say that I had predicted that there might be a closing together.
You predicted like what? You told your kids or something?
No, on this podcast.
On this pod.
Between Giorgia Meloni, the head of state of Italy, and Elon. Meloni is here in New York. Elon gave her an award. He said she was beautiful on the inside and the outside.
She's also someone who is authentic, honest, truthful, and that can't always be said about politicians.
It really feels like they had a connection already, but it feels like that connection, that alliance, whatever you want to call it, it has deepened. And like she's got to be one of his favorite heads of state, if not his favorite.
Right, Dan. Are we going to grant Max this point? Are we going to reward him and say indeed he nailed this prediction?
He did. I don't remember. It was several months ago, but yes, he did.
I predict that Elon Musk and Giorgia Meloni, the leader of Italy, will intensify their alliance, however that means.
And I mean, they are united around immigration, about concerns about the falling birth rate. I think it's interesting that, like, my understanding is that she chose him to give the award.
They both really do seem to be, to appreciate the other. And you kind of get it. I mean, Meloni is conservative, but has been effective as a prime minister. She kind of maybe the embodiment of the kind of world leader that Elon Musk admires, that maybe even in a way that Donald Trump is not.
Okay, very good, Max. So that was a little bonus. I thought we only had feuds. Well done. We're going to leave it there. Max, Dana, as always, thank you.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
This episode was produced by Stacey Wong. Naomi Shavin and Rehan Harmansiyar are our senior editors. The idea for this very show also came from Rehan. Blake Maples handles engineering and Dave Purcell fact checks. Our supervising producer is Magnus Henriksen. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Sugiura. Brendan Francis Noonan is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks, as always, to our supporter, Joel Weber. I'm David Papadopoulos. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us. See you next week.